Yeah, thank you everybody, and thank you for being there. So my session will be the title of this session is really how leading organizations can govern their data to find success. My name is David Talaga, so I'm product marketing for data quality and governance at Talend. Teaming with product management, we are based in all over the world, but for me, I'm based in Paris, and we have European headquarters as well, and then European product development also in France. Let me explain you first the agenda for today's. The table of content, what will we have? So let's first trying to dig about the problem that companies are facing. At least that what we want to share here during this session is definitely explaining you the kind of challenges that companies are facing and how you can try to overcome them with the new models, why the old models could fail, and why the new model could be the right one you could choose. And what are the key customer stories? So I really wanted we build this presentation based on the stories that we develop with customers. So that's something that is interesting for you to know. And then I will go and deep dive into the specific use cases of data governance, and then we'll go to the questions. So let's start by explaining, I mean, what kind of thing can you expect from from your data? And basically, every company wants digital transformations in every aspect of their business. The C-level, they really can be CDO, can be CIO, can be even CTO or CFO. They really have understood the outcome they can get and the related technology drivers. And so the thing is that they can really, they want to turn data into revenue with analytics and AIs. We are seeing lots of use cases in that mode, but also dealing with manufacturing customers. They want really to control automations with IoT directly on the shop floors, and some that are in the retail, and specifically in a COVID crisis where everybody wants to turn their customer experience in digitals. Everybody wants to transform their customer experience in a 360 mode, not only a 360 view of the customers, but also a 360 experience. But also it's all about to accelerate. How can you accelerate the innovation with the clouds? And by the way, the last one, which is really one thing that is top of mind of all of our customers, and specifically in Europe, is how you can minimize risk with compliance and privacy. But the reality is that the companies are struggling with the data. So some facts here that I've stated that are coming from IDC, from Gartners, and from our own experience with customers. And by the way, it's also our own use cases that we are developing here at Talend. The data sources are, of course, multiply. You know that. It's not something surprise, but what is surprising that the impact that now it has, as everything is digitalized, it has a real impact typically on every role in the organizations. And the time it takes for data analysts and the time it takes for salespeople to find the right data, to find the right customer information that is not duplicated, that uses the right billing address and so on, is tremendous. It's more like 60% of time of data analyst is spent on trying to find, to search, and prepare the right data for the specific analyst. And they don't have the time to wait for data engineers to do that. So sometimes they are doing it on their own. That can create some problems and some shadow IT into the organizations. And at the end, and not mentioning, of course, the poor data flowing into the company that can cost an average of 12 million per year. That's a study that Gartner made with a key customer, and specifically in North America, but it's also true in other countries. So companies are struggling, and that's now becoming a reliability. So why it's so hard? Data complexity, too many data sources, too many data types that needs to be centralized and consolidated in one place. How can you do that at speed? That's one of the problems. But beyond the data problem, it's also an expert problems. And that's something that we all need to have in mind. We don't have, companies want to move fast and accelerate fast, but they don't have so many experts. So that's one of the problems. They cannot really waste the time of the expert they have chosen. They know the expert with the business expertise, but they don't know how to make sure that they maximize their times and make sure that they can bring back the business expertise directly into the data pipelines. And the regulation is changing. I think that one stat from Gartner that's saying, basically, as far as privacy, which is concerned for customer data, 65% of the world population will be covered under data privacy regulation. So, and regulation and changing in every industry, like pharmaceutical regulations or financial regulations, there are new ones coming every year, but also in terms of privacy regulations, new ones are coming to the market. We had CCPA, there are some new evolutions coming to the CCPA for the North America, and we have the GDPR in Europe. And at the same time, when you are dealing with data governance, where you're dealing with how can you value your data and protect your data, you have lots of resistance to change. And this is due to the fact that people have really had the habit of working in silos, and that created siloed departments, like business on one side, IT on the other side, but can be finance. So, and that had created not only siloed department, but also siloed data and siloed cultures. And that's something that needs to be break by the people in charge of the data governance. And that's why it's the model of governance is very essential to succeed. So what could be the right model for you to be effective? So I won't spend too much time here. I want to go into detail about what are the models that are sometimes being used by companies and what could be the right and effective model that the one that needs to be chosen. So the first model I want to dig is obviously the one we know, which is called that we are qualify it as a top-down model. So in this model, basically I compare this model to the encyclopedia model. So the encyclopedia like Britannica, you have only a handful of experts that are allowed to author the encyclopedia. So of course, you have data integrity and the quality, which is great. So Encyclopedia Britannica, if I remember well, is written by 100 editors. There are 4,000 skilled contributors with Nobel Prize, US presidents. But the problem is that they struggle to scale in the big data era where you want always accurate and localized articles on each and every topic in your native language. So your organization is facing the same kind of issue with your data. You don't have enough resource to bring all this data in and accurate at speed or to address the growing needs of the business users. And as a result, you have too few people that have access to not enough data, and so you cannot scale your data cultures. And that's something which is important. When dealing with C-level or one topic like privacy, you may think that the problem will be technical, or the problem will be data, but in fact, the problem is how can I instill a culture of data privacy in my company? So if too much control is ineffective, so what about releasing control to everyone? So this model has multiple advantages over the previous one. You can scale across data sources, use cases, and audience. Raw data can be ingested as it comes with minimum cost. So while change are straightforward to implement. But this approach created a large data governance challenge as it was not considered upfront. So the result, if you try such a model, might be well similar to what Facebook is experiencing currently on their data practices. And here I give some example of what happened with Quanum. So they created a platform that has no limit in terms of content, so it can ingest a number of users and communities that can participate. But because anyone can enter any data without control, it's almost impossible to establish after the fact a control that leads to damaging really Facebook's brand reputations. So they hired 10,000 stewards to try to control it and safety units, and they plan to double this accounts in the future. But the reality is that it cannot scale. So in the example of Quanum, they keep on fighting against this hydra inside Facebook that they cannot really succeed in winning. So both models don't work. The first one because you cannot scale, and the second one because you don't have trust insights. So what if there would be a kind of third way? And the third way is really a way where you can balance both the governance and control you need in your top-down approach, but at the same time, capturing the business, capturing the data and the expertise, and also empowering the people with the right tools and process to make it work. And the analogy that I would like to use here is really Wikipedia. So like Facebook, in Wikipedia, anyone can act as an information producer or consumer. But what makes Wikipedia different is that it delivers data governance from the get-go. They establish a third role, which is called the data curator, who act as a quality filter for content. So Wikipedia brings well-defined rules for data curation, including validation rules, alerts, lineage, traceability of update, and so on. But what makes this model so unique is that through Wikipedia has more than 33 million registered users and more than 100,000 active editors. Independent survey really have shown that the quality of information is roughly the same that you have for Encyclopedia Britannica. But Wikipedia wins on scalability. And today they have more than 5 million articles across 300 editions with just 1,000 administrators that are able to run that. And that is model that will be probably the one that we need to choose. So establish such a governance model so you can engage the business to contribute in the process of turning raw data into something that is trusted, documented, and ready to be shared, so you can implement such a system of trust at scale. So you need to have clear rules from the get-go, definitely, so that IT and other support organizations, such as Office of the Chief Data Officers, needs to establish the rules and also provide what we're calling the authoritative approach for governance. But so example is in the bank, where an IP address cannot enter into the data lake unless it's masked or associated with strong access control. But in parallel, you also need to establish a more collaborative approach where the most knowledgeable among your business users can become the content providers and curators. And as organizations start to evolve the data management to address a growing variety of use cases and users, data governance approach need to evolve away from this top-down, one-size-fits-all approach towards an approach that takes into consideration various levels of user autonomy that adapts to new policies and rules. And that's something which is really important, is how you can minimize the cost, maximize your time to value, but also win on scalability and on governance. And by delegating the control to the people that have the right expertise, that are not the data engineers, that is basically the one that are hosted into the business department. So what do we start? So we know we have this kind of, so I still continue using this library analogy because I think that there are a lot of examples in this world. And so in this library, you manage growing volume of assets, not only the traditional ones that you managed in the past, but also the new one that the digital era is creating, but impossible to scale because the more data you collect, the less you can liberate data usage. And what we want is basically a model like a workspace where everybody, not only the experts, but also the new generations, every kind of data citizens within the company can really access the data, still with the control of traditional library, but still a free access control with whatever apps you are using, whatever way you are using to consume the data. And that's this kind of model that we want. So we delivered, by working with customers, a kind of 3 steps approach, a very simple one, to explain how you can deliver this trusted data at speed. So let's focus on this model, and then we'll go directly into the use case example. Here in this model, so we are starting with a capturing phase of data intelligence. So it's a discovery phase followed by a cleaning phase. So at this stage, capturing intelligence is really key so that you know what's inside your data. So you need to capture upfront what's in your data assets and understand what you have to do so it's quality proofed. And quality is really important at this stage. But before starting discussing about quality, you need to understand what's in your data. For that, you need to, what we're calling, automate data discovery. You need to have a system of trust that is equipped with tools like pattern recognitions and pervasive data profiling. So you can apply this control as soon as the data enters into your landscape. You understand what's in the data, so you can make it more meaningful for people. And you get an always accurate pictures of what's going on in any of your data set without doing nothing because it's automated. So now it's possible. So you don't spend time doing manual connections with each and every data source that you have in your organizations. So every organization needs to have these capabilities and put it in everyone's hands so that from a developer to business analyst, it can be very easy to discover what's inside your data. Once you have done that, it's just the starting point, because it will also help you to highlight the anomalies, to detect the data inconsistency, and guide you through the remediation process. So we think that highlighting the data quality issue before remediating the data is something which is important at that stage. So going further into profiling, you can equip the business analyst with the tools to profile the data, and at the same time, delegate the cleansing in the cloud. And one thing that we have seen into why data governance is so hard is that because the same tasks are asked directly to the data engineers when it's about data resolution, data cleansing, and so on. Now we have new models of delegating the cleansing operations. It can be done in the cloud, it can be done on-prem, but the value of the cloud is that it can be done very quickly and very easily. And so you can still maintaining these tools and remotely control and re-injecting the correction that the business analysts have done. And that's something that is key in the model if you want to capture the data intelligence. That's for the first point. But once you have captures, when your data is automatically documented, you have your metadata hosted by your central systems, that's fine. Quality is under control. But now it's time for you to create the single source of trusted data. And one thing which is really critical, enable the people, your stewards, to leverage the data intelligence that you have created. And that really shapes the structure of this modern data library. So think about the online catalog for finding the books in your modern library. So it's a centrally managed place where consumers find what they need to know on the assets and where to find them. The title, the authors, the summaries, the placeholders, so all of this metadata that we know. So the organizations need centralized place, such as data catalog, that can provide a single point of control for documenting the data, together with back office capability, where stewards can maintain the data and really can make it easy and attractive to find and consume. So data stewards are really not alone here for documenting, promoting, and remediating the data. If you equip them with collaborative data management feature, with self-service data preparation, so data stewardship workflow, you can engage your peers for better data. So it's really about making sure that you have a system of trust that is not only data-driven, but also people-driven, so that people can really feel empowered with the right tools to correct and validate the data. And you cannot really scale with culture of data governance and culture of data-driven if you don't have the ease of use of the tools you need to onboard people that have the business expertise, but not the technical knowledge that you may have in your systems. So that's something that that is really critical, and you will see in the example that we'll develop after. So stewardship is really key component here. So once you have developed this single source of trust, you need to make sure that you keep having this source trusted over time. And the role of trusting this source over time is dedicated to stewards. But sometimes companies are just asking in a workflow basis model to the stewards to notify them to say, hey, correct the data or keep it trusted. But the problem is that the stewards sometimes don't have the way to delegate to other stewards, or don't have a way to launch stewardship campaigns or to have ease of use tools that people with business expertise can directly use and validate the data. And that's why it's really key to have them in the loop, and the orchestration phase is really key in the way you engage your stewards in your data-driven organizations. Last but not least, when your data is known and organized in a central place, and you have engaged your key stakeholders to collaboratively keep it trusted and compliant over time, it's time for the last phase, which is probably one of the most important phases here, is automate and liberate the data intelligence so that you can scale and get rid of manual tasks as soon as they become repetitive. So, and you can finally unlock the access to data, to people and application in a controlled way. And that's something which is really important here, because you can, if you want to deliver trusted data at speed, you cannot just rely on manual encoding. You have to make sure that you have a system that can scale. The systems can be reproduced and that can be augmented by people. Why? Because it's good to centralize data, but the data start having value not when it's centralized, but when it's shared. So you need to have system of sharing with your data. So you need to make sure that you can augment and help people with automation capabilities. So machine learning is definitely a plus there. The example that we are using is that for stewards, I mentioned that data governance is hard because you need to you have to not so many experts in the company. But if you can scale the business expertise with machine learning and for remediations, then you can learn from the business expertise and scale it to millions of records. That's something which is really key here. But you also want to make sure that other people like data analysts, data scientists, business user can directly profile and share the data. So that's why you need a collaborative data workspace where people have specific apps. The same way that we are Microsoft delivering tools with Office, you may think that you want your data citizens to use data ease of use data-driven tools that can really help them to manipulate, create the data for their own needs, but still having something like SharePoint or Google Drive to centralize the data at the centers. And that's something which is really key. But last but not least, as I said, the data is value when it's shared, and it's also true. No, data is good for analytics, definitely for taking better decisions, but it's also good when it fills and other applications, or other data pipelines, or other apps. That's why the component of API services is really, really key when you want to publish trusted data into your model. So think about connecting learning modules within a company. You may have some kind of human capital management systems like SAP or Workday or Talentsoft in your company, and you have plenty of records over there. That's good because you put all this record maintained. But at the other side, you have a learning competency module where it could be great if you can bring the seniority level of each employee directly so that you can suggest specific learning module adapt to their own experience. And that is the power of API. So you need to have a system that can not only help you to centralize the data, but also help you to have this data transported and consumed through API. And documenting API and the same, this notion of trusted data is also true for API that needs to be trusted as well. So this was all about this model of these 3 steps where we're delivering this the framework of liberating trusted data at speed within an organizations. Okay, so now we have seen the model, we have seen the framework. What about the use cases that we are seeing? So here, what we like to go and explore with you directly is go through 4 use cases that these typically the 4 use cases that we are seeing for why governance in your company. So in your company, in the organization you're working with, you may have been confronted to each of these use cases. The first one is govern analytics. It's really easy scenario is, okay, I'm using KPI through a dashboard, but how can I make sure that this data have been trusted? How can I make sure I take the right decisions on the right analytics? Can you prove me who is owning that and so on? So that's the first scenario. The second one is data protections, and you'll see in the example of Accor how we develop that with them. Agility is really key, and that's why cloud data lake are also key, but they need to be governed as well. And last but not least, we took the example of how you can liberate the usage of your data using the example of AstraZeneca. And after that, we can start and go through to the question if you have some. So starting here with Uniper. So it's really about governance analytics. So the Uniper is an energy industry suppliers that provide electrical powers to consumers from a variety of sources, including gas-based and hydroelectric plants. And they really had they want to react faster and make sure that they can leverage the data that they have, because they were struggling to get the right analytics sometimes, not only for internal analytics, but also to make the right decisions or to prepare the next step for data monetization when you want to trade energy you need to have predictive model that you can rely on to make sure that you can scale. And that's why Uniper built a data lake model on Azure directly with Talend, and they use our cloud capability of Talend to not only to govern and to protect, but also to scale their analytics and making also IT as an enabler for self-service. So to create the Uniper data analytics platforms, they selected Talend to gather more than 100 internal and external data sources into a Snowflake and Azure Central Data Lake on the Microsoft Azure cloud. So data governance as provided by our catalog was really the success of this data lake that contained data from very disparate sources, but you can trace, you can do the lineage of every analytics that you are producing to the company. And at the same time, it really enables to develop, to enable self-service faster because they connected our data preparation tools directly to their centralized data system so that the data analysts can directly manipulate the data faster into the model. So at the end, they came up with a system where they can reduce their integration cost by more than 80%. And in terms of ROI, because the ROI is something that is really important, this data lake project was really profitable in less than 6 months. That's something which is really powerful for a company that has no time to wait like Uniper. So that was for the governance analytics scenario, and I can encourage you to go and deeper into the story directly on the Talend website. The second one that we like to focus on, and this is a very interesting story, is Accor. You know Accor because it's a world leader in hospitality and can offer guests a unique experience in more than 5,000 hotels worldwide in more than 100 countries. So it's a worldwide known brand. The fact is that they reshaped their core business around the idea of augmented hospitality. What that means is that they wanted to provide a guest experience to every people entering the hotels, all the more difficult that they don't have the ownership of the hotel themselves. So they reshaped this core business around this idea of augmented hospitality. And what that means is that they need to go really beyond the traditional hotel business by using the data to anticipate the simplest of their customer needs. So they need to create cultures, but still respecting personal data, the guest data as a privacy, and was really a top priority for this company. So data privacy for them in the hospitality business is a critical issue. So when people stay in hotels get to know something about how they live, Accor had to ensure that guest rights are protected. So when we start developing this project with them, it was really about the data privacy topic. They wanted to make sure that on the data lakes that they developed, that the data remain trusted, centralized, and under control to avoid data breaches, or to make sure that they keep on control by attributing the right ownership to the right data at the right time to the right people within the whole organization, because they had disparate data sources everywhere. So they use Talend for that, to collect, process, and categorize huge volume of data. But what they realize is that when they start building this data lake with centralized, they start gaining the value out of your data, not only for privacy, but also for the whole customer experience. And the reality that by bringing digital analytics into the way they are communicated to the customer experience, they managed to increase the satisfaction of elite customers by 12%. Same thing for COVID, they were able to anticipate and communicate better with customers because they know them, they have centralized the data and they can communicate it directly and providing them additional benefits so that they increase the customer loyalty year over year. So starting with the data privacy problem at the beginning, so how can I minimize my risk? It becomes a really customer experience challenge they managed to tackle directly with us. Not a big name, not an enterprise customer per se, but more like in the mid-market experience. We work also with a company called Kilo2, and Kilo2 is one of the largest European utility vehicle providers. what Kilo2 is really suffering is making sure that they can scale with their data and be more agile with the data by really bringing the data together and make sure that data is not kept centralized directly into the systems. So with the data for business initiatives, they really empowered all lines of business with self-service and govern access to data with the Talend platforms, Snowflake, and now what we're calling the Trust Core. And the initiatives really make Kilo2 able to be more agile and turn data into revenue and competitive differentiators across all of its business activities. So as an example, they were able to cut the time to close financial statement from 2 hours to 5 minutes, which is in terms of financial closing is really, really key. And the sales also have enabled to manage to establish dynamic pricing for revenue optimization. So by putting data agility at the core of their data for business project, they managed to have also agility in the way they are adapt the pricings of their utility vehicle over time, so which means that when the weather is bad, the price may change. So the dynamic pricing, the agility that they had into managing the data, they manage also to transport this agility directly to the business model that they are creating right now. So that's something which was really key for Kilo2. And last but not least, data is also about liberating the data usage. So here, this story is very interesting because you know AstraZeneca, and they are living as a pharmaceutical company in a heavily regulated environment. And basically, they really devise strategic initiatives to grow with the data, to bringing data together to form a single source of trust. So they decided to build a data lake to all the data from a wide range of source systems. So cloud was really key pillar of this architecture because it provides, of course, scalability and flexibility and speed. And it can also help them to liberate more data usage. So they made a strategic decision to adopt AWS as a primary cloud vendors, but it also chose Talend for connectivity, flexibility. And so they had a whole of our platforms for collecting, governing, and share various amount of data. And they build pipelines, they control the asset, but more importantly, they share this asset with others. So they start with some project, and now they were able really to, by sharing the data with more people, with data scientists, by bringing this accessible source of trust to their works, and they were able to really to accelerate the clinical trial process by 1 month, which is huge in this industry, because clinical trial is probably one of the most expensive parts of drug development, which costs millions of dollars. So every dollar they're spending on data initiative, they are able to get $40 in returns, which is great, because they started to do is to be able to free up some of the data that are spent and apply to really science. So very, very key here, because they are both not only using, so that's a great example of the framework that I presented in the past, because they are able to capture, but also to leverage, but also to liberate the data that they had into the systems. So, and the reality in all this use case is that it's hard to scale if you don't have an holistic approach. This model of capture, leverage, and liberate can only be successful if you rely on a platform that is gathering all the investment that you're doing. Why? Because it's you need the ease of use for the people, so you need to have the right apps for the people. You need to have these apps not being developed or deployed in a shared IT model, but you have to be centralized and controlled by the IT systems. And where data remain at the core. Why? Because data needs to be protected. If you are building customer 360 view, or if you are managing different customer data sources, you know the importance of data privacy, so that you need to protect the data so you can leverage this customer experience. So you need to have this holistic approach. So, and what we are doing at Talend is exactly that. So we are providing the right applications for specific use cases and scenarios that you have seen into the use case, but still delivering them into platforms that is scalable, so that you can do the thing that you're building here are not here for the current, the present, or the past, are built for the future. because your scenario may change or the scenario may evolve as well. The same example that we had with AstraZeneca was it started with Talend 3 years ago, and then it started evolving with new products because the role of the data scientist is evolving and they need more trusted data every day. And so as a variety of role is evolving into your data governance project, you also need to have a variety of apps that can match to those roles. You also need, and that's really key, to make this data accessible to everybody. But if you do this, you won't be able to scale if you don't provide a common understanding of the data health that you have into your systems. So that's why you need what we are called the trust score. I didn't mention it into this presentation, but the trust score is like the universal dimension of the data health that is flowing all over your pipelines. Whatever you are doing, you can still keep a high about the trust score. And that's a really good way if you want to share the data with someone else. And if you want to ask your business analyst to control and remediate the data, you could say, yeah, the trust score is just 3 out of 5. I can encourage you to go and bring it to a 4 level, given that I provide you with the right tools to do that. So that's very operational model that you can use to start with small wins and with small projects and deliver a huge data governance program that can bring value to the organizations. Before going to questions, so just wanted to give you some key interesting materials here. So you can try using this link, the trust score, directly on Talend website. You can upload the data set and we will give you back trust scores or use example that we are providing. And again, we have developed a definitive guide for data governance, so I can encourage you to read that, go into details of the tools or ingredients, methodology that we have presented here. And that's it. Any questions so far?
All right. Thank you very much for the presentation, David. Yes, I do have a few questions already. So, but of course, to the attendees, feel free to share your thoughts in the chat or in the Q&A panel as well. So, I would say let's start right up with the first questions. The first one that I have here is, can you maybe dig a little bit deeper into this notion of trust score?
Yeah, it's come back here. I didn't really again mention it, but it's true that we just announced it, so we have issued this press release. It's brand new at Talend. It's really health indicators that is not only just for data engineers or data governance leader, but for everybody into the organizations. So how can you, when I discuss with customers over the last years, and even with analysts from key consulting companies, say, what is one thing that a vendor like Talend could develop that nobody has and that the customers are asking for? And they keep asking me, you need to democratize data trust. You need to have something that can, on which everybody can rely on to assess the quality of the data they are using or they are prepared to use. So before they know if it's bad or good before using it. So that's exactly what the trust score is doing. It's a health indicator that is not only about the data quality itself. We have plenty of data quality indicators that are built into the platforms, but here the trust score is also about talking about popularity of the data. So the dimension of the people. So if the data is endorsed by a certified group of people, that the score will get higher. So it's not only about the data quality, it's also about the value that and the condition that people put into the data that will make it better. So this notion of having both the people consideration and the traditional automatic data considerations is calculated is something which is really key.
Thank you very much. The next question that I have would be, what are your, let's say, top 3 advices to start a data strategy actually?
I think that it's you will start, of course, with governance committee. You will start by assigning roles and people, but don't forget to also look at the quality of your data. Look at the business use case that are easy to solve and that are the most frustrating for the business users. Make sure that you onboard these business users as part of your data governance project or small project that can, at the end, become a data governance strategy. So you need to start with proven results and with quick wins. And that's something which is really key here. Again, you need to have projects where you can identify and detect measurable outcomes. It can be the trust score, it can be how you can impact the bottom line by minimizing the time spent by people, maximizing the revenue for marketing efficiency. It's quite easy. Before bad data, after with better data, the marketing efficiency will grow significantly. We have tested, by the way, at Talend, so I can send you after that the use case. But it's definitely something which is really, really key. Starting with the business users, with business outcome in mind, and with small projects to make it successful.
All right. The last question that I have here would be, what kind of things or aspects should the best data governance model cover?
Any kind of model, the data governance model is something which is that can really apply to any kind of data. The fact is that we are seeing sometimes when the data is handled by, for instance, chief data officers, sometimes they only have privacy in mind. They only have risk in mind. And same for chief financial officer. They don't want to be fined or to be sued for poor data governance control. So they want to apply controls. But you need to keep on, you need to liberate the data at the same time. So you need to apply these data models of controlling autonomy and of control and autonomy directly to any kind of data source that you can have. Customer data is a great example. You can apply privacy control from the beginning, where the data is automatically masked in your systems, so that if you want to share this data to third party, no problem, you can do it. You can also prepare this data and make analysis about your data, because the data will be anonymized or masked into the systems. So you apply the control, but that does not prevent people from using this data. I remember discussing with a pharmaceutical company that say, I prefer not to use EMR or medical data because I don't know how to mask them, because there are too many data sources that can prefer not to use them. But if you do so, you cannot leverage the value of your data. So you need to start by masking the right data and applying control, still continue liberating this data with the delegation of tools and delegation of processes to the right people.